This is the Vessels Podcast brought to you by Ask Us Why Christian Apparel. We live in a day and age where every opinion, ideology, and philosophy is at the touch of a button. But actual truth only found in God by revelation of His Word, is what can bring us true life and fulfillment that we were created for. And this podcast exists to help you navigate those day-to-day challenges that we face with a biblical and youthful perspective that brings you guidance and clarity in a world of confusion and distraction that ultimately should bring you closer to Jesus. We hope you love this podcast, and with that being said, let's get to it.
Channel 5 News.
Good morning.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah, can't copy that one, can you now? Let me do my intro. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, brothers and sisters. We are back in the studio, live in the Lion's Den. It is your boy Remy, as always, with my good friends Christian, Connor, and Allie. Guys, introduce yourselves. Let the world know who you are.
Hello, welcome to the podcast. Thanks for coming.
I'm your host.
Good morning. Thanks for coming to the podcast.
Okay.
You're pretty good at this thing. All right.
Seasoned vet.
You guys introduce yourselves. There's still a chance for you to...
I'm Allie, co-host here on the podcast. I'm just kidding.
Really? What about that were you kidding?
I'm like not the co-host.
Because we're out of order. You are a
Just
co-host.
kidding. I'm not Allie. And you are?
My name is JF. Sorry. My name is Christian, and I am a Christian.
Hey, is that your kind of like break the ice when you're trying to like meet new people?
When I first meet a girl, it's like
Oh my god.
Just a girl.
let's test.
Any girl ever.
It's the litmus test.
Like, can I be friends with her?
Hi, I'm Christian, and I'm a Christian. And then you just look at like the...
And then if they
You wanna be
laugh and they
friends
think I'm
with
funny,
me? Christian
then
the
they
Christian?
can be friends with me.
Do you want to be friends?
Are you a Christian named Christian? Because if you're not, we can't be friends. That's kind of how it starts.
None of that was true. My name's just Christian. I thought it was funny.
And
but
I'm
it
a
wasn't.
Mormon.
Oh my gosh. Well, guys, how we feeling today? We feeling good? How was your dark ride over here, Christian?
It's dark, man.
It's getting lighter out, though. Every
A
day.
little bit, yeah, a little bit more each day. That's true.
Yeah.
Would you like to share, Allie?
It was just rough. I got up with 10 minutes to get ready. It
Yeah.
was tough. And that's okay. It's okay. I'll
That
move on.
is your fault, though.
That is my fault. I didn't
Yeah.
hear my alarm.
That's tough.
Yeah, you're at fault.
I still shut up. But Connor and I have 37 days till we're married.
Whoa.
Wow.
Wow.
Whoa. That's pretty crazy.
I know.
You guys, I should probably wake up now. That's
Um,
awkward.
Which is so exciting.
Which is
So exciting.
also
And
exciting.
something
Who's-
else is
who's
happening
knocking
today.
there? Is that you, Connor?
Who's knocking there?
Are you shaking it with your foot
Oh,
like
I ain't
that?
shaking nothing.
Is it this one?
It's
Maybe just pull it away just a little bit. Sorry, I'm like, what is that
We
sound?
are
I was also
professionals.
wondering.
First time. Did you guys hit record?
You guys, someone is getting engaged today.
Yeah, but the audience isn't going to know who it is, so it doesn't really matter.
I know.
But
So
shout out to you,
exciting.
boy. Steven.
What's up,
Shout out to you,
Steven?
bro. All right, guys. Question of the day for us to talk about. Have you guys watched The Chosen TV show?
Mm-hmm.
No.
No, but I
Yes.
heard that's about
I
the
love it.
guy. What's his name? The guy that, that one guy.
Yeah.
You know that one guy
So it is you.
who chooses.
Something's knocking. Maybe it's mine.
Oh.
No, it's not mine. I don't think it's mine. That's gonna be so loud to edit.
Idiot.
Oh my gosh.
Sorry.
Carry on.
That one guy.
Connor doesn't know what he's talking about. You just
The
explained
toast-
what
You
that
really
is.
have no.
The guy who chooses.
I hate you. You're so dumb. I hate you.
Good one. I haven't seen the most recent one. Christmas and After.
I, in all honesty, have not watched more than like 2 of the episodes. I haven't gotten around to it.
I loved them.
I've heard really good things about it. It is the largest crowd-funded independent film project, I think, in the world right now. And they were funding their season 2, and they were able to do it. It's a ridiculous budget.
They're funding season 3 now. Season 3 is done. I think they're on to season 4 or something.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
From what I understand, it's like a biblical, as close as you can to like an idea of what the biblical times during like Jesus would be like, right?
Like the gospel. Basically.
Yeah. So, but like they're taking in accounts, like for instance, I remember that one of the first episodes was about Martha, because Martha, if we don't remember really, was like a small character in the beginning that was possessed by a demon. And so like we kind of know just a little bit from that, but they're taking like historical context and like whatever's like pertinent to obviously like that time and day for them to kind of like recreate what it would have looked like realistically to some degree. But it doesn't mean that is the truth, but it's really cool because it opens perspective. So like I just have not gotten around to it, and there's no excuse. I feel like a bad Christian for not seeing that.
Yeah, when
You have to see Chosen or you're not a Christian.
Someone has tweeted that. Someone has.
It's out there. Find
gotta
it.
be out there.
It was me.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, for me, it just brought the Gospels alive a little bit more, like putting, like seeing that, oh yeah, these people have personalities and like character defects and stuff, you know?
Yeah.
I know, but that's so
And you're
true.
like, oh yeah, and Jesus was like fully human. Like he got really tired
Yeah.
and he
Yeah.
worked really hard. So
Yeah.
just different things. You're like, you don't like dream up in your imagination while you're reading it, but are the realities of how it was.
Be kind of like if you went to Israel, which I want to do so bad, just to at least get an idea of like where things actually happened.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for the question, Antonina. That's how you say it. One more question for you guys. This is a good question. So, is it okay to tell other people the gospel even if I am not 100% about the facts? Is it a sin?
What does that mean, even if you're not 100% about the facts? Like about the story?
That's what I'm gonna guess. Clarify either or for that. Like answer either or for that.
Like they're like, and I think Jesus came back to life on the 3rd day, sort of thing.
Yeah.
Like it was 3 days, maybe it was 2.
Yeah.
Those sorts of facts.
Maybe.
I don't know. That is a very broad question.
I think they mean more like talk about Jesus if they don't fully understand all of the aspects of like his ministry. Maybe that's my best guess. Because to answer your question quickly, the gospel is pretty simple. Jesus lived a perfect life as 100% God, 100% man, died on Friday and raised on a cross for our sins and rose from the grave 3 days later. And that anyone who confesses with their mouth that he is Lord and believes in their heart that God raised him from the dead, he will be saved. Romans 10:9. That's the gospel right there. So if you can share that, you can share the gospel. If you're, I think, more relating to just like talking more about faith, maybe like on an apologetics level with someone that maybe doesn't know everything, yes, you absolutely can, because you don't have to have the answers to everything. You can engage in dialogue, and if you say you don't know something, then just be honest. Say you don't know.
Yeah. I think that's also really important, is having the humility to say that.
Yeah.
Like saying I don't know doesn't mean that you're a bad Christian or that you are an idiot. But it can feel like that for sure, especially if like somebody is like up in your business, like trying to ask you about stuff, who might not be a believer.
Right.
Like, I don't know is not a bad answer.
Right.
It's better than you making something up and
Yeah.
and completely, falsifying.
I watch Q&A videos from this really cool pastor. His name is Mike Winger. And the guy's super knowledgeable on the Bible on like every level. He'll take one topic and spend like 50 hours just studying that topic for a week just to like do one video on it. And so like he gets like deep into like everything, and he'll do Q&As every Friday, and they're always live. And so he'll just kind of take the questions as they come. But what's really cool is how often he also gets like really complicated questions. So it's not just questions of like, should me and my boyfriend probably like get married before we live together? It's like way harder stuff where it's just like, what do you mean God is love? What does that even mean? Or like, why isn't the Holy Spirit talked about in Revelation when they're giving praise and glory to God the Father and Jesus Christ who sits at the right hand of the Father? So like questions like that where you're like, okay, I'm going to say I don't really know how to answer that exactly. But he'll even say that he's like, I don't know exactly how to answer that with full confidence, but I'm going to give you maybe my 2 cents on it or what I think can maybe help guide you in like trying to find that answer. And so he'll give some direction with it, but he doesn't ever say like, oh, this is the answer because I know the answer. And so that's been really encouraging to me is like having that posture of humility of like, hey, I'm still trying to figure some of these things out. I don't know that answer fully. And like even someone that knows as much as he does still has to say that. And so it's like, oh, so there really isn't going to be a point that I'm going to get to where I'll just actually know all the answers, you know? So yeah, 100%. It does take that posture. And that's hard. It's not always easy to take on that posture and to admit something like that. But the more you do it, easier it gets. All right, guys. Well, we are going to be continuing our series on pornography. And this episode is going to be about Q&A style, where we ask the questions / you guys ask the questions and we answer them.
We ask the questions and you answer the questions. And so there's just long pauses every time we ask a question.
I'd love for all of us to get a question and then all 3 of us just go, I don't know. And then just move on to the next one. Like we got to live up to what we just said. All right. First question is, if women struggle with it too, why isn't it talked about? Allie, come on, give it to us.
Not to put you in the spotlight.
Yeah. Not to just throw it on me. I don't know if I have one answer, but I feel like the obvious one is it's an embarrassing thing, and I feel like men have this label on them already that you guys struggle with lust, and it's much harder for men to control themselves than it is women. So I feel like because of that, it is just like more commonly talked about that men struggle with it. Women aren't put in that light. I don't know what I'm trying to say, but you know what I'm saying? Like women are not shown in that light in that way. Hardly ever. Yeah. So people don't associate the two together, even though they definitely can go together, and they do. But we just don't see it in that light. So it's just not talked about as much, which is sad, because if it was, I feel like there'd be more breakthroughs. But, you know, that's my answer.
You guys have
hey, that's a good answer right there,
brother. Thank you.
Good answer. You guys have anything else you want to add to that?
Yeah, I think just simply we put time, energy, and resources to solving things that are really hard to solve.
Yeah.
And because there are more women who struggle with different issues, more time, energy, and resources are going to be put to those things. Mm-hmm. I think it's just like a numbers game in terms of that. And so that plays into like the stereotypes and those sorts of things, which is unfortunate because then as Christians, we're called to look after the minority. And so, you know, Jesus left the 99 and sought after the one. And so it's a bummer that that's how society works, but it makes sense, like rationally.
Yeah.
Yeah, it really is a numbers game. And it's like our time is, you know, finite. So I think that we try to focus on things that we think are more important issues, but also we kind of let the world run things versus like the church run things, you know? So if the world's not really talking about it, the church doesn't always necessarily talk about it, because usually the church is talking about whatever the world's talking about because they want to like stay relevant and stuff, not biblical or something like that. That'd be ridiculous.
Something like that.
And so, yeah, like obviously one, pornography is just like normalized in society and it's seen as okay. But obviously now we know it's wrong, but the only way like we're catching up right now is like talking about it with guys. And so it's kind of making it to the surface for girls, but at the same time also not really, because again, the numbers, like they're going to see like, oh, it's like maybe 1 in 6 that struggle versus like 5 in 6 guys struggle. It's like, all right, well, let's help the guys out right now, but maybe we'll address the girls later. Maybe it'll just, you know, get lower, like the number will just go down or something naturally or whatever. But yeah, doesn't make it a good excuse to not talk about it. That's for sure. So it definitely does need to be brought to the light a little bit more. So yeah, I agree with that. Another great question coming from Sorry, I'm on my... It's like early still, so like my phone's set to like not be able to do activities and things, and so it keeps locking me out. Do you believe a lot of the LGBTQ in this generation is a result of pornography?
Whoa. Personally, I've never combined the two. But I don't know, sin results in more sin. Like that happens often. So I feel like it could be, but I don't want to say that was the ultimate tipping point of people being like, man, I am gay. Like, I just don't think that was it. I think it played into it. Definitely probably fed that sin, probably opened up doors. But I don't know much about porn. I don't know what that has to offer.
Yeah.
So I don't really know, but yeah. Anyone else have an idea about that?
I think it's important to understand that like blaming a specific, group of people or groups of people like is not, that's not right. And it's also not the problem. And that's important because and I think the enemy wants us to point fingers at people other than himself and other than sin, which is what happens way too much, even within Christian circles. And so I do think that the enemy, uses a lot of that stuff to twist the truths of the Lord. But foundationally, like, I think pornography has grown because, like, unfortunately, that's what the world desires.
Yeah.
And a loving God gives people what they desire, which is great. But also, if somebody desires something like that, like,
what our flesh desires.
Yeah, like the Lord, if you want it enough times, like the Lord's going to hand you over to it, which is a hard conversation. But I think it would be wrong to point the fingers and say, yeah, that's the reason why this entire thing, has blown up so much in the last, 20 years or whatever. And I think that would put our focus in the wrong place at how we begin to, rebuild that in Christian community.
Yeah. What do you think, Christian?
That's a very sensitive, complicated topic to say, oh, why is this person the way that they are, right? Like, there's just a myriad of factors. So my mom went to school in San Francisco, study abroad program, and she had to do interviews with people in the LGBTQ community, I guess as part of a paper or a study to, see if there was a reason why people identified that way. And she said, just from what she remembers, and this was like 20 years ago, most of the people who identified as homosexual that she interviewed and talked to and grew relationships with were really the correlation was that they all had problems with their father figures, with their dads. They were either missing in their life or had terrible relationships with them. That was like a correlation. It's not causation there. And so there's like speculation, for those sorts of things. But then there's just like, there's so many things that go into that. And it's not going to be like, there's going to be plenty of people who have great relationships with their dad who still feel that way. And so like I would attribute it to the structure of families more so than pornography.
I'm going to be the oddball out here, and I'm going to say that I absolutely think that it plays a huge factor or a huge role into it. Not only the internet is obviously like the biggest factor of this, because one, we humans are just humans and we suck. Mm-hmm. And so we're sharing really bad ideas across the world in instant time, So we're already seeing like poor examples and influences and ideas being shared. Like once they came out with like the printing press, like things changed because ideas were starting to be shared. And that's when the Enlightenment started. And so that's when like things started to change, and it was more about human reason and it was science and those kind of things. And so like imagine even more than that. Now we have the internet. And so you can go into a freaking like Reddit thread and spend hours just reading different people's opinions, or you try to look up a question and instead of it being like actual like reliable source, it's Quora. And so you're getting some like random guys like 2 cents on things. And so, man, even more than that, like we're normalizing pornography in society. And we've talked about this before, but the age of exposure is growing like more and more like towards like the 10, 11, 9-year-old rate. And even more than that, like these kids are getting phones because parents don't really care. They're getting like devices, iPads, like all these kind of things like really early on in life. And most parents don't care to set boundaries, don't care to set any kind of like protection against those things. And so they're being exposed to it. And like, one, it strikes curiosity into them. But two, they're not just seeing a male partner and a female partner making like perfect love for each other because it's both a monogamous relationship that's fully consensual that somehow just made it onto the internet. Like, no, like what they're seeing is sex is a game. So obviously we're going to say that like, yes, this has played into why sex is a game in society and how it's sleep with whatever partner you want, treat it like it's, you know, a chemistry between the two, try it before you buy it, all this kind of stuff, because pornography is a huge factor into that. And I'm going to go the step farther and say that like it does play a role in that because like there's obviously categories for like lesbians and for gays and for like everything across the spectrum. And so like you're going to get so many different videos, so many different perspectives on what sex is like. And so it strikes curiosity. So I've heard, and I don't want to like quote something because I don't have it, but I have heard that there are studies that show that there is like actual like correlation and causation between early age exposure to pornography and homosexual tendencies. And even more than that, like as we're like leaning into more of the transgender community and stuff, like it's all driven by emotions and it's all driven by like sex drive. Like those are like the two, like I feel like biggest contributors to it. And so like they're going to find those things in those videos. Now, do I think that that's the ultimate cause? No, I think that there's a whole world feeling those feelings and those things that are natural temptations that we're all going to face at some point because of the flesh, right? But like it's being fueled by those things. So do I think that it's like the cause of it? I think that we just like in our nature are sinful, and that's just kind of like a temptation we're all going to face at some point. But it matters like the influence you have around your life, how you've been raised up, like those kind of things that can play factors too. So like going back to like your father figure, or I've also heard that like sexual abuse at a really young age can play into those things too. So there's a lot, and yeah, it's a messy subject and all those kind of things. But do I think that pornography plays a role into this whole issue? I would say absolutely, because it's definitely making an impact one way or another. Because we've talked about it too, right? Because pornography is not just those videos. It's what we see in TV shows. It's what we see in movies. And so when we're normalizing those kind of things into like the next generation that's so young, like they're going to be influenced to think that this is normal. But like obviously it wasn't always normal, but now culture is normalizing it. And who's to say that in 200 years, it's not going to be normal anymore? It's going to be something completely different. Who knows? But like, this is just what society is now normalized. But if we were 200 years ago, it wouldn't be that way. So that's my part, my take on that one. So I got another question for us. This one isn't from a person, but it is from us, and definitely want to talk about it. So if someone you are dating has a pornography addiction, one, how do you handle that? And two, do you break up?
How do you handle that? And do you break up?
Yes, that is what I said.
Slight accent at the end. I think that, first of all, situations are situational and they're different. But there definitely is, a lot of harm, I think, that comes with that. And I think that the majority of the time, yes, it would be a good idea to break up. Mm-hmm. Probably most of the time. I do think there's situations that that person can be, not the reason why that stops, but a big reason why. Obviously, the largest reason is to live as Christ and to live, righteously and to not sin in that way. But I do think that most of the time it's not helpful to be in a relationship if you're struggling with a porn addiction. Yeah. And I think you can make all the excuses you want about why, it's good for me and, my partner to be in a relationship. He or she is helping me, through this thing. But if you're not growing at all, like if you have no point A to point B to where, you can see yourself climbing out of that,
Yeah.
then that's a hard decision, but it's ultimately better for both of you.
Yeah. You guys have anything you want to add to that?
Mm-hmm. I always go back to like the reason, the why behind what we're doing, dating. The why behind dating is to get married. Then if the person you're dating has an addiction to pornography, then I would say immediately just break up with them. Like that's my stance. Because like if in marriage, like an addiction to pornography increases the odds that you'll get divorced by like 130%, the odds of infidelity by like 300%. And so
It's probably a good sign that that you shouldn't be in a relationship.
yeah. And so like, man, like that's one of those things. It's like, you're not a perfect human. You're not going to be perfect getting into a relationship, but this needs to be figured out before you get into one. And I for sure, like, I think that if you're going to heal whatever's in you that needs to be healed to break that addiction, it needs to be with Jesus. And a relationship with someone else takes away your time, energy, and resources towards being able to go through that process of healing. You're going to be distracted by hanging out with this person, doing things with them. It's not like every single time you're hanging out with this person, you're like, oh man, just like draw me closer to the Lord. And you're being drawn closer to them in that addiction. And so that's my 2 cents.
I do have a clarifying question. When you say addicted to porn, do you mean porn as in like a video, like pornography? Or are you saying even images on Instagram? Because there are people who can't, like, genuinely, Instagram, I've seen it, they stop and look. They don't keep scrolling. So my thing is, are you genuinely, because I know people might want to know, does he mean porn or does he mean like lust? What are we talking? Because there is a difference. Both are wrong.
Yeah.
But I mean like
I
level.
think if you have any kind of problem with self-control and lust, so that would be the clarification for that.
Okay, good. I just want to clarify.
Yeah. It shouldn't be like just the videos you see online that you're like, well, I don't do that, but I got Instagram and I got YouTube, and that kind of like is my scapegoat or whatever it is. Like, no, it's just any kind of lack of self-control with lust. Yes. So my 2 cents, yes, you should break up. Because I agree, Christian. Like, we date for the purpose of getting married. And so, like, if you want to practice that to bring that into marriage, go for it. You're going to end in divorce real quick. Like, you
Or
really
have
will.
a crappy
Crappy marriage. Yeah, absolutely. And you could try and talk your way through those things. But I think the bigger thing is that, like, we know it, but like actually choosing to step out of a relationship can be so hard, especially if you've been in one for a long time. Like, what do you say to someone that like started dating and didn't have a problem, versus like they started dating with the problem and then the problem came back up in their life and it seems like it's only seasonal or temporarily? Like, trying to convince someone like that to like end the relationship or even like take a break. You know what I'm saying? Like, we get so attached to like relationships like that, especially if like we haven't been in one for a while. And so like we love the idea of having someone that gets to be our everything, right? But like having to like make a sacrificial like decision like that for the betterment of the relationship and for them, like, we don't think that way. We think like, this is like, I'm getting all these things. I'm receiving love and affection. I'm receiving attention more than anything. So like, I don't want to lose that. But we forget that like in a true relationship, the way that it should be is that you're doing always what is best for the other partner. Like, what is the most loving thing? And that's why like too, like it can go the other way where it's like, hey, the most loving thing that you can do for this person is actually break up with them. Because one, they're trying to go places that you don't want to go with them. Like, they feel called to something else and you feel called to another area and you guys are conflicting, or if you want to move there, it's like, now you're just holding each other back. And it's like, are you doing this out of selfish ambition, or are you doing this because you really feel called to like get married, but neither of you guys want to compromise? You know what I'm saying? So like, trying to find like that mindset of we should always be doing what's in the best interest of the partner and putting them first really would make it easier for us to think those things where it's like, yeah, if I'm struggling with pornography, it basically, like, if you really think about it, like, it's cheating on them constantly. And even worse, if it's like you're dating and you have set boundaries, And then you have no boundaries with pornography when it comes to like masturbation and those things, because you're doing way more intimate things with your phone than you are with them. You know what I'm saying? So like, it's even worse when you think about it that way. It's worse in every area, but like just trying to like give some perspective there. Like we don't think that it's that big of a deal, but when your mind like neurologically is connecting with those images over and over again, and you listen to testimonials of people who have had years and years of addiction and they try to get over it and they just have images ingrained into their brain and the smallest triggers bring those things back up. It's like, do you now realize how powerful this thing really is? Like, it's not something to just like throw over your shoulder and think it's not a big deal. It's like something I'll kind of get over. Kind of like gossiping. I feel like gossiping is one of these where like you kind of find yourself in it sometimes. You're like, it's whatever. I'll get past it and stuff. Like we kind of do that with a lot of sense to try and justify that like we don't want to fix the problem. And so I would say that in any case, like the best thing that you can do is like at least break up or take a break. Sorry. That's like the first step is if you're like, hey, I need to get this like figured out. And this goes for the guy or the girl. This doesn't go for just guys. So just to clarify for that, it goes either way. So just like being wise and being loving and choosing like, I want to do what's best for my partner. It might be the hardest decision you can make, but man, I hope that if that doesn't motivate you to get over your problem, then I don't know what it's going to do. You know what I'm saying? Like
But don't put that expectation on a girl that if she dumps her boyfriend, that will make him wake up and then he'll come back in 2 months free of porn. Because sometimes that doesn't happen.
No, totally. Yeah.
It's not like breaking, like that is something that I just know. It's hard to get out of a relationship.
So you're talking from more the perspective of like someone breaking up with that person that has like the addiction or the problem of self-control.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like,
yeah.
I assumed that's what we were talking about.
We're talking about if you're the one that has an addiction as well. That was more my perspective, is that if you're the one with the addiction, you need to do what's best for your partner
as
in
the
that sense.
individual who doesn't struggle with porn.
Right.
I think what's hard though is you hear about it and you read about it, and I can tell you how nasty it is, but I don't understand it. I don't understand the catch to it. I don't understand the video. I didn't know there was categories. You said that and I was like, categories? Like, whoa. It's like a TV channel. That is crazy to me. But I think what's hard is we don't, nor should we, dive into that. So I think that's where, like, my end, like the person, male or female, who like doesn't struggle, we understand that it's wrong, but I think we just don't know to what extreme. We know that they're cheating, but it's almost like we start to hate the sin in the world and other women or other men. Like I found myself being like, all right, that is just so sad. Like, women, please cover up, like help brothers out. Yeah. But I wasn't. Nice.
As I don't know why I have an 8 o'clock alarm set up.
But I feel like it's just like harder when you don't understand it, because then you almost stay in it because you're so blind to what, like the weight of what it is. Yeah. If that makes any sense. But I agree with you guys. Like, yes, there needs to be a change in there. Mm-hmm. But I like that we've all said, and I want to clarify that everyone in this room has said it is hard. Connor even said, yeah, it is situational. But ultimately, what you're doing is wrong. Like, if you have an addiction to porn, especially if you know you have an addiction, and if you haven't told your partner, like that is another question, I guess. But I wanted to say I agree, but I also wanted to make sure that it was known that it is hard to get out of it, especially when you don't understand it fully.
But if you're also going to tell your partner about it, like you have to be so careful, because like they're not like there to share all of your burdens, because we've talked about it before in our boundaries podcast about emotional boundaries. We think that everything boundaries wise is just physical, and so we're like, oh yeah, let's just set these boundaries. But you're like, one, don't even think about spiritual boundaries at all. That's probably, important, but even more than that, like emotional boundaries. So when you start sharing your deepest, like what?
I was going to say, but if you start, because I've actually had friends question this, like, here's the thing. If you start dating someone and you don't tell them you have a porn, first of all, why do you engage in the relationship? Right. But second of all, I think you should tell them. That is your.
Well, what I'm saying is that, like, if you're going to stay in the relationship and you're going to tell them. Okay. Sorry, there's my clarification. Okay. Because one, we just don't set about like boundaries emotionally. So what you do is you share your deepest, darkest problems, insecurities, struggles, all those kind of things with that person. Right. And now they know like the most intimate parts of you.
Yeah.
And like if you break up or if anything gets unhealthy or even just like in the relationship anything goes wrong, like
Right.
there can be fear of manipulation and leverage, or even when you break up, it gets way more dramatic than if it was just like, yeah, we just like, you know, dated for a couple months, trying things out, decided that it just wasn't for us. Versus you're like, I've shared like the deepest things that I haven't shared with anybody else with that person, and now they know it, and we're not even, you know, dating anymore. You know what I'm saying? So like we don't realize that you have to be super careful with like what you share with your partner as you continue on in the relationship, because they're not always there to be that burden for you or to carry that burden. Like there's a reason why we have the church. There's a reason why we should have leadership around us, that we should be involved with that. Like there are certain things that guys should only be confessing to other guys, like within their groups, because there's no reason you should be going and telling girls that, just in general. But even more like telling your partner those things, it's like you have to like, one, go in with wisdom to be like, why am I telling you this? What's the motive behind it? And what am I asking from you? Like, am I asking for you just to pray for me? Or am I asking you to be my accountability partner? Or am I asking you to be the one that like, you know, checks in on me here and there and like, you know, don't let me go stay up past midnight or something like that? Like those are the kind of things where you have to be like, that's not what your partner is there for by any means. So that's where I was just saying is that like, you have to be really careful that if you are going to stay in the relationship, like there are certain things that you shouldn't tell them. If you are struggling with an addiction though, you should tell them that you are. Yeah. But your next course of action is usually to take a break or to do something where you guys are separated until you can figure that thing out. Because you should only be dating for the purpose of getting married. And like you're training for a basketball game or for a championship, like you obviously wanting to like do what you can to prepare for that. And so if you want to prepare for marriage, then you should be doing everything you can to like get rid of the crap that you don't want to bring into that marriage and figure that stuff out. Because you know how we like to get into relationships with tons of baggage and just kind of share it because we think that reckless love is romantic nowadays, right? We've just like,
So sick.
oh my gosh, it's just so exciting. I just want to share all my burdens and with someone. It's just so fun.
So fun. That sounds awesome.
Ashley asks, why do you think believers fall into it? Because they think no other believers struggle too?
Into pornography?
Yes, into pornography.
Why do you think believers fall into it? I feel like you can ask that question about any,
sin,
any habitual sin.
Because we're humans with flesh that desires to be satisfied.
Amen to that. Yeah. If we think that we're impenetrable to sin once we become a Christian, we have to realize that like we're still constantly at battle with the world, the devil, and the flesh. Yeah. And if you don't believe us, go read the book, Live No Lies.
Shout out.
John Mark Comer.
So good.
What a guy. This person asks, how would you talk to a sibling opposite gender about getting help for an addiction?
Oh, whoa. That is tough. I don't have a sibling, so of the opposite.
You are now void of the conversation.
It's like I don't.
Allie has left the chat. Do you have a sibling?
I have lots of siblings.
Do you have a sibling?
Yes, of the opposite
I have
gender.
a sibling. We are still. I'm just kidding. Yeah, you have like 12, don't you?
Yeah.
Okay, but how many do you actually speak to?
He's like
5.
12.
You don't
I
speak
call them
to
every
all of
day.
this.
I call each one every single day.
Yeah.
For an hour every day.
12 of my, all the time I'm awake.
I charge
Oh,
them
my-
hourly.
Can you imagine actually calling each of your siblings? Like, get to that point in life where you're just bored all day. So you're like, I'm going to call each of my siblings and talk with them for an hour each.
Later on in life, man.
Just to clarify, though, they're not all blood-related siblings.
No.
Because then
Only one is blood.
Isn't that what Cheaper by the Dozen is or whatever? Isn't that where they're all blood-related?
I think so.
That's
Yeah.
crazy.
That's pretty, yeah. It's
Cheaper
also
by
a
the
TV
Dozen.
show. But there are real, like, Octo-moms and stuff like that out there.
Octomom.
Yeah.
You heard of her, right? She was
Yeah,
on TLC?
yeah.
Octo-mom. How you doing? You listening to this?
Anywho.
what do you guys think? Do you guys have any insight into that?
Opposite gender sibling. I think it, first of all, depends on the relationship you have with that person. Like, but I also think you can't, like, it's hard with difficult conversations like that to, however it goes, like if it goes badly, to
Remember, you still live under the same roof.
Well, yeah, but also to feel like it's your fault if they don't get help. Like it comes to a point where the only thing that you can do is, tell them that you want what's best for them. And that might be to go get help, with somebody that is same gender or with a leader like in their church, or get connected to a community. And I think a lot of people take on the responsibility that like if that person doesn't change in that way or they don't get help, that it's their fault, which isn't true. Like you can't control somebody's actions or intentions, but you can try and walk beside them in that, but don't take on that burden, especially of if they struggle with this continually, that is on me because I didn't do something right. But that is difficult conversation. I think it's situational, but I also think that the best thing you can do is, not let that continue in the darkness, even if it is as awkward as it, if you have other siblings, you can bring them into that too. But the worst thing you can do is leave that because you think it might be a difficult conversation or an awkward conversation, and then just be like, oh, they'll figure it out,
Yeah, 100%. I think, it also matters. We have to clarify, are they also a believer? Because if they're a non-believer, sure, you can desire to get them help, but it's not to the same level of standard that we have. Because again, we don't desire to break free from pornography because there's simply, a couple of percentage numbers that go up for our probability of divorce. The reason we do it is because we desire holiness and we're called to purity and to flee from sexual immorality. And so those are the reasons why we should seek those things. And so if you have a sibling that isn't even a believer, you're going to have a much harder time trying to convince them to even want to get help, because it's I don't live by your standards. But if they do, then the first thing you can do is pray for them. And that's the best thing you can do, is just be praying for them constantly. And the second thing that you can do is if I guess it really does depend on how open your guys' relationship is to each other. Because sometimes siblings can be best friends. And then you can have sibling relationships like mine where it wasn't always just best friends. It was just someone that you happened to live with, and maybe you knew that the problem was happening, but you're not really close to them. But either way, the ultimate goal is not to become that that accountability partner for them. It's a matter of encouraging them to find that person. And so that really goes back down to are you guys involved in a church? Do you guys have a community that you're surrounded by? Do you have other believers? Does he have other believers, or does she have other believers that they are surrounded by, that if you're not going to tell them, then someone needs to say something about this, because we do it because we love them, not because we want to control them and tell them what to do with their life, but we know how damaging it can be, and we know that there's shame behind it. But if someone has an alcohol addiction or a drug addiction, we're not going to just let that sit under the rug because we're well, they can do them. That's their life. We're going to do our thing. No, we're called as brothers and sisters in Christ to judge each other and to call each other to repent and to rebuke, which is a weird word because you don't hear that anymore. And so that's, if we neglect to do those things, then that sin gets to live on, and sin is so powerful when it is hidden in the dark. And so definitely bringing it to the light in any regard can definitely help, but finding the right people to come alongside them. So not putting all that weight that you have to have one conversation, and if they don't take it the right way and they run away from it, that all of a sudden now you're responsible, you're saying, Connor, you're not responsible for those actions, and you've done what you can. The best thing you can do after that is to continue to pray for them. And if anything, if you know people in leadership that are in your church that you could talk to about it, then maybe they could reach out. And once you've done that, and there's not really much more you can do, you just keep praying and keep praying for them. So I hope that helps. Obviously it's a half sentence on Instagram versus the full story of everything. So obviously there's context that we don't fully understand. But we hope that gives some insight for you and how you can handle that.
And I just want to add,
yeah,
I love questions. Questions are a great way to kind of gauge where they're at, right? So simply asking them, hey, are you interested? Do you desire to break your addiction to porn? Or even if you're aware that they have one, asking them, hey, are you addicted to porn? And do you need help? And if they're no, I don't struggle with that. At least it'll get them thinking about it. Yeah. And definitely not accusing them of, look at you, you have an addiction to porn. That's going to be, I don't know. I mean, it depends on your relationship, but
Yeah.
it probably won't help them think about and allow you to like walk with them through that journey. So
That's solid.
questions.
100%. Yeah. I forget that like one of the best things that you can do like as a leader is like not only like, yes, at times like you have to direct people and like tell them what they need to do, but if you can get them to like give that resolution or create that solution themselves, they're more likely to like live that out. So mediators do this when they handle conflict, is that mediators aren't allowed to give the answer or the solution if there's two parties that have a conflict, right? So the mediator is just allowed to guide the discussion with questions that go back and forth to kind of handle the situation, but they're supposed to come up with the solution themselves, because if the mediator does, then they're less likely to actually like follow through with that, because they're like, I feel like now I'm just being told what I need to do. But if you create the solution yourself and you initiate that, then like you're more likely to do that. And so the same logic and the same rules apply to where like asking those kind of questions to like lead them to that decision that like, I do need to get help. And like, this does need to be something I need to do, like is way more powerful than just telling them you need to get help. Because people can hear that all the time. And then it turns to this whole like, yeah, well, you need to get help too. And like, you know, leave me alone. Like I'm doing my own thing. And it can become defensive, because it feels like like we are like as Christians, until Jesus comes back, we're going to be hypocrites at times. There's going to be things that we preach that we turn our backs on, and we do, which sucks. And so it especially in like the household of family, like scripture talks about how like a prophet is not even welcome in his own town. It's because it's so hard to reach the people that you've lived with your whole life, because they got leverage on you, bro. They know about the mistakes you made when you were 7 years old that you didn't even know. They know about that one time that like you crashed mom's car and you didn't tell mom. So they got that. And I'm just kidding. But no, like seriously, it's really hard to reach like your family. And so any kind of like, hey, you need to get help. Hey, you need to do this. More often than not, it's going to result in like backlash or defense to some degree. And if they have wisdom, like, then they're going to eventually turn around from that and be like, I know you're right. I know that these are things I need to do. And so we pray for that. But on top of that, like if you can avoid that altogether, the best thing you can do is just, if you're going to strike the conversation, just like prompting them to answer those questions of like, do you believe that this is something you need to do? And like, what is it going to take for you to want to like, you know, get better about these things? But like getting them to answer those questions yourself or themselves versus you just telling them what they need to do is a much better solution in the long run of trying to like help people with where they're trying to go in life. So love that. Good stuff, bro. Cool. Well, I think that's all the Q&A questions we got for you guys today. If you guys have more of them, you guys can holler them on the podcast. I think you can just, well, I guess just do it from Instagram. We'll put up some more story slides so you guys can ask some more questions for those things. But is there anything else you guys want to add before we peace out of here?
Do you do the question thing on Spotify? Where they can...
I do Q&A. I do like polls, but I don't think you do like they can ask a question. Only I can ask a question and they answer it.
Okay. Yes, but they can respond to it, and then we could look at that next time.
I don't think they can. Maybe they can. I'll look into that. I don't know if you can do short answer. I thought it's just polls or multiple choice.
No, you can do. I did it recently.
Oh, yeah. Great. All right. Well, we're going to ask the questions in the Spotify podcast channel.
Thing.
Thing.
Or if you have like a comment or something, like we can pin it underneath the episode. That'd be cool. If they're like, I really like this part, we'll be like, oh,
the
cool.
The best thing that you can do is you can like it. Just hit that star. 5 stars.
5 star.
5 star.
The rate.
$5.
$5 foot long.
Only $5.
Yes. All of us were on the same wavelength
Go
with
back.
that one. That's awesome.
Any 5.
And now my sandwiches are like $11.
$5
You know what Connor's
Can we
favorite?
talk about that, bro? Can we talk about inflation for a
Connor's
second?
favorite song is that I want my baby back, baby back, baby back.
I want my baby back, baby back, baby back. I want my baby back, baby back. Chili's, baby back ribs.
Is that a song or is that a vine?
That used to
It's from
be
The
the
Office.
commercial, didn't it?
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Big
He's like
commercial.
Chili's baby back ribs.
Welcome to Chili's. All right, guys.
Hi, welcome to Chili's.
No.
My name is Jeff.
Oh, no. They're getting silly. We got to get off the podcast. We got to go.
Talking about chili.
Oh, no. All right. We love you guys. Thank you so much. Leave a review. Leave us some likes on Spotify. It literally means the world to us. Make sure you share this podcast with those around you. Make sure you're following us on our social medias. Make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel. Yes. And we'll catch you guys in the next episode. Peace out. Love and blessings.
See you later.
Goodbye.
Bye.